All right. What's going on, guys? I got an awesome episode of Talking Appearance Sports with you. Today, we're going to be talking to Anthony Miller. He is a writer, and he's got a podcast called Beyond Pigskin. He's a writer for XFL NewsHub and Network Brawl and Sports Gamers On. So make sure you go check out his stuff. You can find him on Twitter. I'll post up one of these pop-ups here in a minute. But, Anthony, thank you so much for joining me here. I'm really excited.
Yeah,
I've been wanting to talk some XFL for a while since The Rock had bought the league, so I'm pretty excited to have this conversation with you today. Have you been? I hope you've been really well during all this crazy stuff that's been going on in the world. What's been going on?
yeah. Thanks for having me, Nick. Appreciate it. It seems like I think we talked back in February about the XFL, and that just seems like forever ago, especially with everything that's happened with COVID. So it's really great to be back on the show again.
Awesome. I'm always glad to have you, and hopefully we can keep talking about XFL here. I mean, it's been crazy since COVID happened. It seemed to me that the XFL was doing just fine, but the coronavirus bankrupts the XFL. Did you see that happening when the league shut down? What are your thoughts on it?
So I guess I was surprised initially just because I thought the first season of the XFL was successful in terms of ratings. They were averaging over 1 million viewers per game. Attendance was really good. For the most part, they were able to get anywhere between 15 to 17,000 fans per game. I thought the revenue stream was going really well for them. Obviously, I think everyone knew they were going to lose money in its first year, but obviously with COVID, it took a toll on them. I think the big issue was Vince McMahon had to make a decision on whether did he want to look out for the WWE or look out for the XFL. And I think in the end, his big revenue stream comes from WWE. So I understand the decision on maybe cutting the cord just so that he can protect his baby in the WWE. But at the same time, if he would have just, stuck it out for just a few months and then get back into it, I think things might have been okay. But again, this is just uncertain time, so I completely understand where Vince McMahon was coming from. He's got to look out for the WWE. They were still doing shows even through COVID, so he's got to look out for his best interest.
Yeah, and it was so the league had gotten started, and we got a couple comments coming in here real quick. I just want to pop them up. Hey, how's it going, Brandon? The Rock will bring the XFL back stronger. Go Ballers! I like it. Yeah, it seemed to me that going into purchasing the league and getting the league all set up, that he already knew that he was going to take a loss in revenue. So it just seemed to you that he didn't want to take more of a hit because of this?
Yeah, so the original plan was Vince McMahon was going to put about $300 million into the league. And in its first year itself, he put up, I think, about 200 million, which might have been more than he was kind of expecting, but that was supposed to hold over for about 2 to 3 seasons and then hopefully make a profit after the second season after they build a following, which it looked like they were on their way to doing so because they were doing pretty well. I think they made about 40-50 million dollars of revenue just through the first 5 games alone. So they were already on pace of doing better than they were expecting. It was just in the end, Vince McMahon's putting a lot of money in WWE, he's putting a lot of money in the XFL, and WWE was still putting on shows. So he probably felt like the best thing to do is protect the WWE. Let me, cut my losses now, and it's terrible to say, but also going through bankruptcy, it also meant that he didn't have to pay everyone back as much as he would have had to if the XFL was still up and running. So for him, he was just trying to save as much money as possible. Everyone may look at it as a bad thing, but business-wise, it was probably the best decision for him.
So Oliver Luck and him ended up getting a lawsuit between the two of them, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Do you have any details on that?
So there were some key components in what happened there. So from what I've heard is that Oliver Luck, so Vince McMahon wasn't happy with Oliver Luck in the sense that when COVID happened and they suspended the season, that Oliver Luck basically went running home and didn't stick around with the XFL. He wanted to be with his family and stay home, but that seemed to have rubbed Vince McMahon the wrong way. And what happened is Vince McMahon ended up firing Oliver Luck along with the other employees when they had to cut ties with the league in April. So Oliver Luck was just trying to get his money back because he felt like he put a lot of effort into the league and they had contractual obligations that Vince McMahon needed to follow up with. But there were some reasons that Vince McMahon didn't exactly didn't want to pay Oliver Luck. I know one big thing was Antonio Callaway, the wide receiver that they brought into play with the Tampa Bay Vipers. Apparently, Oliver Luck was going to pay him more than the about 55,000 that each player that is not a starting quarterback was getting. And then he got hurt after like 1 week of practice, and so they had to pay for his medical bills, which ended up rising up to like over $100,000, which Vince McMahon was not happy about because Antonio Callaway had his issues off the field, so he didn't want him to play there in the first place. And then he didn't want to pay that much money for a guy who's only played 1 week. So that was one of the things. Also, Oliver Luck was allegedly using his phone that he uses for the XFL for personal reasons. So it became kind of a petty war between the two legally. But those are some of the details that I have to it. But in the end, it was just an unfortunate thing that happened. It seems like it was a pretty bad fallout between Vince McMahon and Oliver Luck, and it kind of just spewed out into the public.
I bet Mike Ebersol is laughing somewhere.
I don't know if he's laughing because I think he really liked the idea of the XFL and he liked working with Vince McMahon, but it was just one of those things that it just didn't work out. There were issues there. I think it happens to every starter league. We saw it with the Alliance of American Football. Charlie Ebersol saw his own issues with that. So I think there's always going to be issues when you're starting up a business. You're going to make mistakes. There's going to be
Mike.
things.
I meant Charlie. Thanks for correcting me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep going. I'm sorry, man.
No, I was going to say like he may not be as happy, but I'm sure like deep down inside, he's like, well, the XFL went through the same issues we did. Cause in the end, finances tore down both leagues. With the Alliance, they just made so many mistakes business wise.
Bad investments.
That was controllable. They could have controlled that and they rushed into it and it blew up in their face. With the XFL, coronavirus happened and there's just nothing that could have been done. I mean, Vince McMahon could have kept it alive, but he already lost. I think it was in 2019. He made like over $2 billion. And then going this year, after what happened with COVID, I think he was down to like 1.9 billion. So he lost $1 billion within a year or two. So for him, that was probably like, okay, I got to cut ties with the XFL and stick with WWE and try to build that back up.
We got a couple more comments in here real quick. Brandon says, what is something from the XFL you liked and would like the NFL to try? Well, I'm going to answer my opinion here real quick. I loved the extra point attempts. I'm so tired of watching this boring extra point kick that the NFL does. I thought what they did with the XFL extra point was phenomenal. What about you, Anthony?
So I also love the extra point that the XFL did. I would just do one little change. I would cut the 1 point out because we saw too many teams go for 1-pointers because those are just high percentage plays. I would like them in 2021 or 2022, whenever they start up, to do a 2-pointer or a 3-pointer because I think that would be more exciting for the fans. But the one thing I would, if I was the NFL, you got to bring the kickoffs. I think what the XFL did with the kickoff is perfect. One thing, it protects the players so they're not running down the fields full speed. How many times have we seen players like the one Rutgers player like over 10 years ago who became paralyzed because he was on kickoff trying to make a tackle? Like I think that's just a play that those injuries can be avoidable, and I think the XFL found a way to not only protect it but also force the kickoff to be a more prevalent in the game and actually force the returners to return the ball. So I think it has the best of both worlds, and I hope the NFL looks into it within the next few years.
Yeah, and talking about the kickoff, I liked how they basically nullified coffin kicks too. Like coffin kicks just completely were not you just couldn't do it in the XFL, and I just don't like seeing the redundant, boring stuff that we see time in and time out where you're either seeing a fair catch or a guy run out of bounds just to not get murdered. So,
yeah, and the XFL would punish teams that would kick out of bounds or not kick within the range because they would put them at the opponent's 45-yard line. So I loved how the XFL was like, you need to return this ball or you're going to face the consequences. So I loved it.
So after the bankruptcy, we're kind of looking at all the players are getting paid for the rest of the season, and that's great. And we don't know what the future holds for the XFL now that Oliver Luck and Vince McMahon have cut ties. But Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson comes out of here out of nowhere and breathes life back into the XFL. Was there any kind of implications or little rumor mills that you heard that The Rock was going to be an investor for this?
No, that was something that none of us even expected or thought that was going to happen, but it makes all the sense of the world. And what was funny was it actually wasn't The Rock's idea. It was Dany Garcia, who is The Rock's ex-wife, but also business manager. She actually approached him because she loved the XFL herself. And she's like, hey, we need to go buy this league. And The Rock was like, yeah, let's go for it. So they teamed up with Redbird Capital. They were able to put in $15 million, which is a great deal in itself. But I think it was something that we weren't expecting, but I think in the end, it makes all the sense in the world. And honestly, I think it was probably the best thing for the XFL. I think it is going to bring more exposure to them. I think it's going to bring more excitement because The Rock is a big name. Also, him and Dany Garcia have great experience in the entertainment world. They also have great experience in the sports world. She helped The Rock through many contract negotiations with WWE. They're both, The Rock was a former football player himself. Garcia's been around football. So it's going to end up being a win-win situation. Plus, Redbird Capital has ties to the NFL. So I think in the end, this was the perfect partnership to take ownership of the league.
Now, that was going to be my transition into the next question that I have for you. With their ties to the NFL, can you see the XFL now becoming a developmental league for the NFL? Say like a farm system for like what the MLB does?
I would personally love to see that because this could be a great avenue for college players to make the transition from if they wanted to leave college early, but maybe didn't feel like they're going to get a high pick in the NFL draft. The XFL is the perfect place to do it. We saw with Kenny Robinson with the St. Louis Battlehawks. He had academic issues in college at West Virginia. No one was really sure what his draft stock was going to be. He decided to take the XFL route. He got paid while playing 5 games, and I think he ended up picking off 2 interceptions. He had a really good run with the Battlehawks. Ended up getting drafted to the 5th round to Carolina. So I think that proved itself that this thing can actually work. So I would love to see the XFL become a developmental league. I think now with The Rock having ties to football, with Redbird Capital having ties to the NFL, I think this could be the perfect opportunity to maybe not right now, obviously, but maybe 2-3 years down the road, prove that the XFL can be sustainable during the spring and have a partnership with the NFL, because this could work exactly like NFL Europe was back in the 90s and early 2000s, where they were directly associated with the NFL and served as a farm league to groom players like Jake Delhomme into NFL players. So it'll probably take a few years because I think there's always going to be concerns with the NFL with partnering up with spring leagues. But I think if the XFL can prove itself, I think it'd be a perfect situation to team up with the NFL.
I mean, with the success that the XFL had, I mean, dude, if coronavirus hadn't happened, I mean, the Seattle Dragons and the Houston Roughnecks, if I'm not mistaken, were almost sold out every single game. There was people and butts in the stands. I mean, the success that even the ratings that they were getting on television, the success that they have, I have a hard time seeing it not be sustainable. I mean, the coronavirus was just unpredictable.
Also, St. Louis was on their way to having 45 to 50,000 fans for that next home game that same week.
Yeah, because they were going to raise because they had like this like tarp on the upper level, and they were going to take that off, right?
Yep, and I think they were estimating about 45 to 50,000 fans were going to be in the stands for that home game that weekend. So that was why I think Vince McMahon wasn't too happy about calling the season quits, because they were on their way to making some big time money, especially with in-game revenue that week.
The kickoff rules were the best. Yes, the kickoffs. Sorry, I'm getting to you guys' comments. Like, get rid of the boring stuff. NFL should start with the Seahawks. Oh, don't do that to me, Brandon. Come on. Don't do that to me. All right, so we're talking new XFL, and I'm going to call it XFL 3.0 because that's basically where we're at. Are we anticipating new teams? Are we anticipating teams to, I don't know, be gone? I know the LA Wildcats were talking about moving at the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken, right? Oh no, it was the Vipers. It was the Vipers.
Yeah. So the speculation was during the summer that the Dallas Renegades were contemplating about moving to San Antonio. That was just a rumor there. New York was going to move out of MetLife Stadium and play in a smaller field. There were rumors that the LA Wildcats could potentially move. I think a lot of people were speculating that it could have been San Diego, because I think that was their original target before the Alliance of American Football came out. So they decided to go with LA. And then, yeah, the Tampa Bay Vipers were rumored to go to Orlando just because of the Apollo success from the AAF. In terms of if there will be new teams, I don't think right now, especially if they play in February of 2021, then I don't think we're going to have any new teams. I think more than likely, if they play a season in 2022, we could see teams move because COVID will be gone by then, and they'll be able to set up headquarters where they wanted to go. But I think right now, everyone is the plan is right now is for everyone to stay put until this COVID thing kind of dies down. It seems like they're going to play in a bubble in 2021. That seems to be the plan, but nothing's concrete yet. So we'll just kind of wait and see. But if a season comes in 2022, then we could see some changes. I don't know if logos or team names will change, but I think we'll have some different locations.
So we're basically looking at maybe not even just having the same names of these teams, but the markets that the teams are in are staying put.
I would say the team names would probably stay the same. I think some markets might change. I think the LA Wildcats and Tampa Bay Vipers are probably the top two that are probably going to move from their spots and go to a more formidable market. The Dallas Renegades could move to San Antonio just because the Commanders of the AAF had a lot of success. They were averaging 25 to 30,000 fans per game. So that would make sense to put a team in San Antonio. And in New York, I think MetLife just it honestly didn't look great on TV to have. They were still averaging like 15,000 fans, but it didn't look like it because MetLife is just so big. So I think they might move them to a soccer field, and it would be more affordable too to play like where the Red Bulls play.
All right, so Brandon nailed my next question right on the head. Are we betting on an XFL season after the NFL this spring?
It is so tough because of what's happening with college football that it's kind of changed what people are thinking. The initial plan during the bankruptcy was that they proposed a plan to have a bubble season starting in February of 2021, right after the NFL season. They were going to have a 12-week tournament in one location, be able to crown a champion by April, and then be done with the season. But now with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 potentially playing in the spring, it could result in them possibly moving to after April, or starting late April, early May, and just playing the summer, just so that they don't compete with college football. Or they could just stick with the bubble idea in 2021 and play it out, or they can decide to not play at all and wait till 2022 and just kind of restart from there. I would say that a season is going to happen. That would just be my best bet. I could definitely see them playing February 2021, and I still think they can work around college football. If college football does play, they can have select days for themselves to play. But other than that, I would bet on the XFL playing February 2021 right now, but I would suspect that they're going to play in a bubble because that's going to be cost efficient. Plus, it's going to be for the best protection because I don't think COVID will be gone by then. So I think it would be the safest choice and the smartest choice financially.
So if we're betting on this 2021 season, right, and this is clearly all hypothetical right now, but if we're betting on this, are these teams that have pretty much set rosters already going to be looking at the same players, or are they just going to hit the reset button, you think?
I think the smartest idea, since you think about it, they only have maybe 6-7 months to get this all together before February 2021 comes around. So if they were smart, whoever had, their players last year, like for example, if the Houston Roughnecks had like Connor Cook, they would own his rights first and just keep everyone on the same team. And then whatever positions need to be filled, like Houston Roughnecks will probably have to get another quarterback after PJ Walker went to the Panthers. And then, the Battlehawks don't have Jordan Teamo anymore. So they're going to have to find a way to replace him, maybe do another draft that has more players involved in it. Because you think about this Canadian Football League, it looks like starting Monday, players are going to be allowed to opt out of the Canadian Football League. So that's going to open the door for not only the NFL, but it's going to open the door for the XFL as well. So you're going to get a whole new crop of players coming in that you can sign. So I would suspect that another draft will happen in October and November, but every player that was assigned to a team last year should stay on that team for now. And if those coaches want to make trades or anything like that, give them the option to.
I totally agree with that. Now, keeping kind of similar on the same topic when we're talking about rosters, are we looking at the XFL incorporating all the same rules? We don't want to try and change all of the puzzles. All the pieces of the puzzle is pretty much all set, right? We're going to look at the same rules.
Yeah, I think essentially it's the same situation since they just don't have enough time to do everything. I think they're probably going to stick with the same rules. Danny Garcia has already said in public how much she loved how the XFL set everything up, how the rules were made. So I fully expect that they're going to keep the same rules for now. And if they want to make any changes, they'll do it after the 2021 season.
Yeah, so I think they got a pretty good foundation to start this. Why try and move some stuff around and make it more muggy than it already is? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel. And the timeline is just not there. If they were just going to push everything off to 2022, then I think they would absolutely look at the rules and see if they can make any other changes.
Okay. Well, so I don't really have too much for you after that, but I do want to talk about what was some of your favorite XFL 2.0 season memories. It was a good 5-6 games, right? 5 games? It's a good 5-week season. What were some of your favorite memories of the XFL 2.0?
I think pretty much every week watching PJ Walker play. That dude just made week after week after week after week, just watching him and Cam Phillips. It was something I don't think the XFL was expecting, but they ended up having probably the best dynamic duo of any spring league outside of the NFL. So it was great to watch PJ Walker perform the way he did because he played himself into a nice 2-year contract with the Panthers. So I think everyone was happy to see that. A personal favorite memory of mine is that first Dallas Renegades game against the St. Louis Battlehawks. It was a defensive battle. It was a little tough to watch just because, we didn't have Landry, the Renegades didn't have Landry Jones in that, but the atmosphere in that stadium was spectacular. It was I think it was over 18,000 fans were in the stands at Globe Life Park. And, being from the Dallas area, it was weird going into a baseball stadium watching football, but that crowd was absolutely electric and they loved every minute of watching Bob Stoops on the sidelines coaching the Dallas Renegades. So that was a really great moment for me to be a part of that.
Yeah, so I also got to go up and be credentialed to go and see the Dragons out here in Seattle. And man, the fans out here were nuts. And I loved that they gave these guys the orange towels that they were waving around. Yeah, I'm just sitting in this window in this press box, and I'm looking down at the bowl, and all these orange flags are just waving, and the crowd's loud and being crazy. I loved seeing what they were doing out here in Seattle, and I really hope they keep the momentum going into the next season.
I don't think you're ever going to find a better atmosphere than watching Seattle Dragon games at home and watching the Battlehawks in their home games. I mean, those home fields were, even just being on television, just watching on TV, it was spectacular to watch. And I know it made every XFL fan happy just to see how packed those stands were.
Who was that cat out there in Houston that they lined up for the extra point play, and he said he had drank a whole bunch of Gatorade, and he lined up for the extra point and threw up all over the place, and then ended up making the play.
I want to say it was Keenan Lewis or something like that.
I can't remember.
I can't remember.
That was some of the funniest stuff, man. The cheese guy in the crowd. I loved the crowd for the XFL, man.
You got to talk about. We can't talk about the XFL without the beer snake.
The
DC.
beer snake, yeah. Just as I was listening to the radio out here, and this was as COVID was like, kind of going. The beer snake was going on, and this guy's like, "Just pass around COVID. It's all good, man." The beer snake was wild, though. I loved it.
They better bring it back next season. That's all I got to say. Then.
Brandon says XFL 2.0 better set up than XFL 1.0. Yeah, man. The first XFL was, oh man. I don't know if you watched any of it. I was a little young, but I remember watching it, and it was very theatrical.
Yeah, I was 9 or 10 when the first XFL came out, and I was a diehard WWE fan. So it was actually one of my first introductions into football. And, back then I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is so much fun. And I watched it like 10 years later. I'm like, oh boy, the talent is not great there. I mean, Tommy Maddox came out of it. I mean, that was Paris Lennon, the linebacker that ended up having a good NFL career. There were some good players out of it, but yeah, I think it was a little too theatrical, and I don't think the performances on the fields were very good. Plus, they absolutely rushed that thing too quick on hiring coaches and signing players. So yeah, 2.0 was set up so much better than the first time around.
Well, and I think they had so much time when the XFL got announced. We'd already seen that they had come out with a floor plan, a blueprint, in the second time around. And I don't think that was there for the first time.
Yeah, and I think Oliver Luck needs to play a big factor. That was the best hiring that the XFL made, having him brought on, and then even Jeffrey Pollack, the president, I think bringing him on also was big because he ended up, hiring all those team presidents, and he set the foundation for those great organizations.
We got another comment here. Thanks for the follow. Make sure you guys are watching this on Twitch as well. Do you got anything else you'd like to add, Anthony?
I'm just saying I'm happy that the XFL's back. I can't wait to see it. Hopefully we'll see it February 2021. But I'm looking forward to covering it again. I've missed it. It was really tough to see the XFL leave this first time around, but to see it come back the way it is, I think it's coming back in a big way. So I'm excited to see what the future holds, especially for the next month or two.
It was absolutely heartbreaking for me personally, and I'm sure it was for you. And I'm just glad we're getting an XFL season again. Guys, this is Anthony Miller. Make sure you go check out his Twitter. He's got an awesome podcast. Why don't you tell them about the podcast?
Yeah, so I started a football podcast 2 months ago called Beyond the Pigskin, basically covering the NFL, XFL, college football, arena football, whatever kind of football there is, I'm covering it. So I've been doing that for the past couple months. If you want more information on it, you want to listen to it, I got some links up on my Twitter page. That's at Beyond Pigskin. So go ahead and give that a follow and listen, because I hopefully I got some good, insightful stuff on that podcast for you guys.
Awesome, dude. I love having you. I love talking XFL, and it was kind of hard to get other people to talk XFL with me. So I'm so glad that you wrote back to me, and I hope we can keep doing this as the XFL progresses.
Yeah, hopefully we can talk again closer to when hopefully the season starts in 2021. If it happens, we're going to need to do this.
All right, last comment in here. Jason, love the XFL. Well, so do we, and we like talking about it, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you so much, Anthony. I look forward to talking to you in the future, man.
Thanks for having me on, Nick. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, make sure you guys go check out Anthony's stuff. We got a show tomorrow with Gavin doing Circus Monkey Sports, and guys, Make sure you guys are watching all of the stuff that we're putting out. We got weekly shows here on Game Changer Sports Network. I'm Nick from Talking Interference Sports.